In the last 10 or 15 years, the iPad, the computers, the cell phones, they've become really, really important to our lives. They're good things. But I have this that I always pack with me as well. And I don't know if you can see what it is from down there. It looks just like a rope, but it's a riata. And a riata is braided rawhide. And this is a real nice little rope. I've roped with this bugger for a long time at a lot of Brandons, and it's just a neat little rope. And it is probably one of the oldest tools known to mankind for handling livestock. This is 4 strands of rawhide, and it's been around since before biblical times, or whenever. When they started killing animals and using their hide, this started. And they first started tethering animals out. You want to talk about grazing management, this is your first electric fence, your first barbed wire fence. They tethered animals up and they tied them out to graze. As it evolved, this became a rope for capturing animals or for catching horses or whatever. So I declare this as stockmanship. This rope is the symbol of stockmanship. And of course, ropes have developed a lot more since this technology too. Now we've got nylon ropes. If you go to the calf roping, or I don't know if you call it a calf roping here or a tie down roping, the match, you'll see some pretty sophisticated ropes. If we don't use this technology, the ring scale, our computers, all the things we can learn online, if we're not using that, we're missing a big part. But if we miss this segment, the stockmanship segment of the deal, it's really, really tough to get things done right. Now, as we get more and more involved with machines, tractors, cars, and less involved with handling animals on a daily basis, we lose some of the natural skills that you just grow up with when you drive a team all the time, or milk a cow, or feed the chickens. Those were things that were just natural to people when everything they did was with animals. But now we work with animals a very small percentage of the time. And we get to where we don't work them quite the same as maybe we did before. And so what we've done is we've come up with better facilities. And that's good. Facilities are part of the technology. But just because you have good facilities doesn't mean the cattle are going to work right and get things done the way we need to do them. So it comes back to the skill of stockmanship. And I think it's real important to think about that. Now, what has happened? First, we're going to talk about, I always like to tackle the hardest things first. So we might as well talk about human behavior first, and then we'll go into animal behavior. All of us here have learned how to survive in our human environment. And the busier the world gets, the more we got to learn to work in a way that's human friendly. And the main thing we have to do to live in this fast-paced world we live in, where we get in lines to eat, we get in on roads to drive, we learn to line up and get right in behind somebody. And you follow them up in line, or going to the movie, or paying you're getting your car license or whatever. You walk around behind somebody and you get in line and you follow them up. When we're out on the highway, we get in behind people and we follow them up, or they get right behind us. We even build roads so you can do that. Now, I am so messed up. When we pulled out of the motel this morning, and there at Joplin, there's a thing where you go on the opposite side there and everybody else is coming the other way. Ryan and I were both confused. You see, they changed that deal, and now we don't follow people up anymore. And I didn't like that, because I wasn't used to it. It wasn't my habit. Roundabouts, those look like the craziest dang thing in the world, because we're not used to going straight in a line behind somebody, and people get real confused. So our human world tells us to get right in behind somebody and follow them up. And that's what we have learned to live, and that's what we do. Now, I don't think great-grandma and grandpa did that. And especially before that, before there was a lot of roads and a lot of lines where you lined up. So I think a lot of our livestock handling problems might be from our habits of going around behind somebody and following up. When we go to work at our livestock, we do the exact same thing. what used to take me 30 days, now I could do a lot more in 2 hours. And the main reason is back when I was a kid and my grandfather was helping me, I didn't have a round pen. And I drove a lot of horses. And I got in behind them just like driving a car, and I drove them. And I'd have to work quite a bit before I could get on and be safe enough to ride and go. But if you get a round pen, it changes the whole dynamics of working a colt. And the reason that happens is because I used to think the round pen was because your horse could walk, trot, and lope in a circle both ways, kind of natural, but not get away from you. But really what it does is it gets you working the horse on his side. You start out on the horse's side, work up and down his side, and you can get control of the horse's mind and his body first. So just by a simple change of your position, it changes the whole dynamics of the way that the relationship was with the horse. And I learned a lot of other things too, like pressure and release and all those things, which really increase the speed of getting things done. The good part about it is I think the horses that I started after, especially after I'd done it for a while, when I first started out, I didn't think anything could buck me off. And I kind of set out to prove that, so it didn't matter if they were ready to get on or not. I just kind of pulled my hat down and I could ride them and I'd just go. But as I went on, I decided I couldn't ride them all, and I started using my presence, the pressure, the release, and all the things that made a big change. So if we look at the cattle business, the horse business is kind of a predecessor. I believe this cattle handling thing is kind of following the footsteps of the horse thing. And 30, 40 years ago, there was a man by the name of Ray Hunt that started traveling around the country and started doing clinics and talking to people. And a lot of people at the coffee shop or at the stable or at the rodeo arena would poo-poo him a little bit and say, that old man's crazy. And he's putting those people on those horses with no halters on their head, and he's going to get somebody killed. And he probably did get a few people close to being killed because they shouldn't have been riding colts in the first place. But if you were handy enough to understand what he was saying, you could really change the way you worked with the horse and really, really improve yourself. Well, the cattle business is kind of the same way. For a while, when I first started trying to do these things, people were I went to a place in Nebraska. And Preford had a big old setup of equipment up there, and I went to work in these cattle, and this guy got mad. I said, nope, put your hot shot away. We're going to vaccinate some calves. I said, it made him mad that I told him to put his hot shot away. And ended up his kid broke his hand. It was a lot of resistance. And in Nebraska, I guess they just don't understand some of those things. But in Missouri, they do, it seems. It's changed a lot in the last 15 years. Now people are starting to think, well, maybe there is something to this. The thing is, whatever you do has to match your skill level. And if you're going to tell a guy that's been working cattle for 30 years that he's been doing something wrong all this time and tell him not to do that anymore, that's ridiculous, because he's survived it and he's got it done and he's been doing it. All I want to do tonight is give you some ideas that might help enhance whatever your skill level is or your style. Now there's people here with lace-up boots and seed caps. And there's people here with cowboy hats and custom-made boots and everything in between. And what I see around the country is every segment of our industry has some success. We just use different styles. And I would say every style has some people that are really good and they get their animals worked real effectively, and there are some people that are just really bad. On the cowboy side, if you're good, you're really good. If you're bad, you better have good fences. Because the cowboy is about putting a lot of pressure on and getting her done. And the problem with being a cowboy is you want somebody, and he's got a nice hat and a good pair of spurs and chaps, and he looks cool. So you want to be like him. So you get the kit before you get the skill. And those are the worst kind. You should have to earn your hat. You should have to earn your spurs before you can even act like a cowboy. But that's another story here. So I am all for all different ways of working with an animal that works. So I don't know what you do. The only thing I can do is tell you what might enhance what you're doing.